channel. So in today's video we are going to talk about the case of Dr. Anthony Garcia. But before we start this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done already and turn the post notifications on so you get notified every time I upload a new video. I post videos every Saturday. This case was suggested by one of you, and if you want to suggest a case you can reach out to me through the comments or through my social media. My Instagram and my Twitter will be linked down below in the description box. And having all that said, let's just start this video. On March 13 of 2008 in Dundee, Omaha, Tom Hunter, who was 11 years old at the time, was returning home from school at around 3 p.m. At the house was 17-year-old Shirley Sherman, who was the housekeeper and cleaned the house every Thursday. Tom had 3 older brothers, but they had already moved out, so he was the only one who lived with his parents. On that day, Tom's mother, Clary Hunter, was in Hawaii attending a conference, and his father, William Hunter, was at the hospital and he wouldn't be back in a few hours. Both of his parents were doctors in Health Creighton University Hospital. However, when William returned home that day, he saw his son and the housekeeper, Shirley, dead. Both had been killed with the knives that were in the kitchen, and Shirley still had the knife in her neck. When the investigation began, it was weird because there were no signs that had been a struggle or a fight. Nothing had been stolen, and there were no fingerprints and no bloody footprints. William Hunter was interviewed by police. He was still in shock, but he was able to say that when he entered the house, he saw Shirley right in the hallway with the knife on her neck, and then he started yelling for his son Tom. William also said that as far as he knew, he had no enemies. Police even asked him if he had some patients that might be upset with him. As far as he knew, he hadn't, and they lived in a peaceful neighborhood. Tom, like every other 11-year-old boy, loved to play Xbox, and there are some cases that are a little violent. So investigators started to think if his killings in the online games had come to a reality. When investigators arrived at the scene, the Xbox was still on. When interviewed, William said that the only chat room that he knew his son was a part of was the Yville chat room, and this was for children. But when we're playing online games, we don't know who we are playing with. They can say they are 11 or 12 years old, but they can be much older. So this was the first lead. The other lead was what neighbors saw that afternoon. They were able to make a sketch of the man that the neighbors had seen, and since the beginning it was assumed that William Hunter's family was the target, and Shirley just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. After all, she was only there once a week, so it doesn't make sense for her to be the target. Every person that Tom had talked to online was interviewed, but to no avail. There were still no suspects. William Hunter was a member of the pathology department in the Creighton Hospital, and he oversaw students coming through training. So investigators interviewed his work colleagues and the students, but that didn't get them anywhere. There were still no suspects. Everyone had an alibi for the afternoon. And Shirley's family put up a $50,000 reward for information and even hired a private investigator, but that still wasn't enough. 2 years passed and there were still no suspects in the murders of Shirley Sherman and Tom Hunter. Now, 5 years later, in the morning of May 14, 2013, piano movers arrived at a house in West Omaha. They knocked at the door, but there was no response, and they saw a handgun magazine. Inside the house was the body of an older man who had multiple gunshot wounds and a stab on his neck. And he wasn't the only victim. There was also an older woman who was stabbed to her neck. But this time there was blood all over the place. There was the handgun magazine dropped at the front door, and once again the knives used to kill the victims were from inside the house. But still there were no footprints or fingerprints, and nothing had been stolen. So investigators quickly came to the conclusion that this crime had been committed by the same person, and they're most likely connected. When the victims were identified, it became clear that the two cases were connected. The victims were Drs. Roger and Mary Brumback. Dr. Roger worked at the Health Creighton Hospital University in the department of pathology, same as Tom's father. And it also became clear that Mary wasn't the target. The target was her husband, but as Shirley, she was at the wrong place at the wrong time. The couple had been last heard from a few days before on Mother's Day, and Roger was actually on the process of retiring and moving. That's why the piano movers were there on that day. So we have 2 double homicides. All of the victims were stabbed to their necks, even though one of the victims was shot in the second case, And both Roger and William, who seemed to be the targets, worked in the pathology department of the Great Hospital. And as if this wasn't enough to make investigators believe that these two cases were connected, only 4 days after the investigation on the murders of Roger and Mary Brumback began, another member of the pathology department reported to the police that someone had tried to break into their house. So investigators started to investigate the pathology department, everyone that worked there or had worked there in the past, and a name came up: Anthony Garcia. This doctor was a resident of the pathology department and he had a complaint filed against him by a family of someone that he didn't autopsy on. This was documented in an email from Dr. Roger Brumback to Dr. William Hunter. The body was lying face down, which distorted the face, and this was unacceptable for Dr. Anthony Garcia to let this to happen. And Dr. William Hunter was asked to investigate this. Anthony Garcia then received a letter in which was decided his termination of residency in the pathology department, and the letter was signed by Drs. Roger Brumback and William Hunter. Anthony had complained to his chief resident and to Dr. William Hunter about Chandra Butra, saying that she had insolent behavior and in many occasions had insulted him and humiliated him. Now, remember when I said that someone from the pathology department had reported to the police that someone had tried to break into their house shortly after the investigation on the second double homicide began? It was Chandra Putra who reported that. Someone had tried to break into their house, and most likely she was the next victim. At this point, everything is pointing towards Anthony Garcia. He had a motive. Chandra had also agreed with his termination, and once she gave him a poor evaluation and said that he was passive aggressive. Anthony was the type of person that it wasn't easy to get along with. He had been dismissed from other residencies program, he had been fired from a lot of jobs, and he had been denied a medical license multiple times. And that was because of his termination letter on the Great Hospital. Since then, he was never able to get a job or a medical license. There was found a gun that belonged to him that matched the handgun magazine found at the Brumback's house, and investigators found out that he was in Omaha on the day of the murders. And they also found that he had searched for their address in his phone. So investigators went to Indiana where he lived. However, when they got there, Anthony Garcia was gone. They tracked his phone and he was in Illinois driving north. He got pulled over and they found guns and bullets in his car. When investigators searched his house, they found notes of Anthony's plans. That wasn't very smart of him, writing everything that he was planning. That wasn't very smart. And it appeared that he was planning to go to Canada or to New Orleans, but he was found driving north, so he probably decided that he was going to Canada. Then Anthony Garcia was arrested for the murders of Tom Hunter, Shirley Sherman, Mary Brumback, and Roger Brumback. It became clear that he was seeking for revenge because, as I told you guys before, after he got fired from the Creighton Hospital, he was never able to get a job on the medical field. He was denied so many times. He became frustrated and he just wanted revenge for the people who did that to him. During his trial, a witness was called. She was a former stripper and said that in 2012, Anthony Garcia told her that he wasn't as good as she thought he was. He admitted having killed a young boy and an old woman. And the way he said this was as if he was proud of what he did, which is absolutely disgusting. And I can't believe that someone can feel proud of murdering two innocent people. He was found guilty of the murders of Tom Hunter, Shirley Sherman, Mary Brumback, and Roger Brumback. And in 2018, Anthony Garcia was sentenced to death. And he even played dead during this. But yeah, that's all for this video. So as usual, leave in the comments your thoughts about this case. I really want to know what you guys think about this case. If you haven't done already, please subscribe to my channel and turn the post notifications on so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. I post videos every Saturday, and if you want to suggest a case, you can reach out to me through the comments or through my social media. My Instagram and my Twitter will be linked down below in the description box. And having all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye.